Hello everybody, Bart here. We haven't recorded anything about the Bonanza for a while, so I figured it's time for a long overdue update. Mrs. Beach came from an annual end of September, and I got to fly her a little bit, and I wanted to share with you some of the things that were done. Many of the things were done as a result of an excellent beach service clinic inspection that you should see the other video that I have on this channel. And then there were some additional things that I wanted to have done. So let's get started. And then we'll just do a walk around through the airplane and I'll point those out items. One thing that we've done is, unfortunately or fortunately, I had to replace both the discs, the brake discs on the airplane. That wasn't specifically called in the beach inspection, but we found that they were at the limits. So we, or the mechanic replaced them. The other thing that was done, and you cannot see that, is we replaced all of the rods. There's a 2,000 hour limit on the rods, and there are two different types of these end rods on the landing gear system. One of them has a greased bushing, and one of them has a permanently, or the newer style has a permanently greased bushing. And there were some that were the newer style, some of them were the older style. I just said, hey, let's just get it all replaced at the same time. So then I only have to worry about 2,000 hours, which is probably by the time I will retire, I'll have to replace those again. So next thing, now this is interesting. Drain valves. The drain valves are obviously notorious for leaking, and one of mine were leaking. The other one had it replaced as well, so I have two of those. And the trick that my mechanic used, might be useful to you, is to fill the tank all the way with fuel, and then get the new valve, which is, you know, obviously this one is already installed, lubricate it with a fuel grease, and then basically disconnect this valve that's held with a clamp, and then pull it out and put the new one. Obviously, there is a risk. There is a risk that whoever's doing this will rip this nipple right off the tank, and at which point you're looking at a bladder replacement. Fortunately for me, he was able to replace both of these drain valves with no problems whatsoever, which is great, because I was really fearing the worst. I was fearing that we'll be looking at a bladder or potentially two bladder replacements. I'm so happy now these valves are brand new. They're not leaking. The other ones were completely deteriorated. There are O-rings in there, you know, and they just wear out and disintegrate, and basically you're looking at new valve. There's no way to service them. Of course, there's newer style valves, the flash ones, that you can just replace the wearable parts. But you know, these are the original Beach valves. So that's that. The next thing, which is a real nice trick from the Beach Service Clinic, see those shiny cutter nuts in there and pins, and see how they have spring clamps or exhaust springs as they call them. You put those on your cowl flaps, and that make these cowl flaps real nice and solid. They won't vibrate, and they either open or close. And this is a trick that was taught to me at the Bonanza Clinic, and the mechanic, I told that mechanic to do this, and now these cowl flaps are nice. They don't vibrate, there's no play whatsoever. And if you haven't done that on yours, I would recommend you do it, because it's a cheap fix. Moving right along. Have we done anything here other than adjusting this guy? Let's see. See this right here? That is your safety switch. When you pull the throttle to idle, or below certain, I'm sorry, not to idle, but below certain manifold pressure, and your gear is not extended, you should get a warning horn. Bob Ripley told me that he recommends, and I agree with him, to set this at 15 inches. By default from Bonanza, they set it pretty close to idle. You know, so their idea is so you don't get bothered. But I feel like, well, pretty close to idle, you might be ready to flare. Whereas at 15 inches, you know, you are maybe getting on a, you're getting to you're maybe like 200 feet AGL and you're just reducing the power or pulling the power. So this will give you earlier warning is I guess what I'm trying to say. So I adjusted this one because it just slides. There's like a couple clamps in there and just slide it on that rod. It's hard to see, it's obstructed. See, I pull this. See how there's that rod for the throttle to get it to 15 inches. That's what Bob told me to do, and I agree with him. So that's one little trick. Other thing I'll show you here. So people were saying that I need to get this resecured. Maybe they were not seeing it right. There's no chafing here. People were telling me in comments that this is rubbing on the battery box. Now this is all properly grommeted, as you can see. There's grommets, and this is secured, and you can wiggle it. It's not touching the box. So that really is just something you noticed. I think on the video maybe incorrectly. I don't know if you were very astute, you noticed that there was a crazy wire running over here. Somebody did some crazy ass engineering on this thing before and ran additional ground wire, and I had my mechanic, well, let me rewind. See this shiny little relay in there? The second one from the top? That's your battery master. That is your battery master relay. Now, let me walk you through this. And let me just give you my personal spiel. And you go on Beach Talk, and like something. Everybody, there's got an opinion over there. So they will and may disagree with me, and I know they will, and they have. But here's my spiel on this whole thing. This master relay, the battery master relay, that's the guy. This one goes for this one is your starter one. Is a single point of failure. If that thing fails, you will lose everything on the airplane. You will lose your avionics, you will lose your radios, you will lose, basically like throwing the master switch. The engine will continue obviously to run, but everything else will go dead. And unfortunately what happens is you may arrive somewhere, like I did, and you turn on your master switch, and the thing is dead. First thing, obviously, your battery went dead, but then I realized it was the master switch. So, as a preventative measure, there is a recommendation from these Skytech guys, which make this, to replace it every 20 years, which I don't think it's unreasonable. I mean, this thing only costs like 80 bucks for 20 years. That's nothing. Now, some people on Beach Talk will tell you, well, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. Except when it will break, inevitably, it will be on Sunday evening at a non-controlled airport with no mechanic in sight, and then you're gonna be stuck for several days until you get that part, unless you have it in your baggage compartment. And some smart Alex were telling that, oh, you know what, just swap it out in the field. Good luck. Okay, these bus bars had to be heavily modified, bent, and the diode might be shot, so you might have to replace that. You might have to change some wiring. So good luck doing that in the field, like on a ramp. I think if you're thinking that you're gonna do this, you've been smoking something from Colorado. So basically, that ain't gonna happen. It has to be done in a shop. Unless, of course, unless you already have Skytech and the Skytech happens to fail and then swap it out. But still, you gotta have the right wrenches, and it's not the easiest. It's not the easiest access to it. And plus, legally, you could not replace it yourself. So take it for what it's worth. I think if you got an original one, I would say change it, and don't be penny pincher and being penny smart pound foolish with stretching it out. Mine's been original and failed in a pretty bad situation. Fortunately, I got out of the bind, but as soon as I got home, I literally flew to my mechanic and told him, change it out. All right, so get off my soapbox. Oh, and as a part of this fix, he has basically found out that they put an extra ground wire to run it to the externally. There's a relay there for the external power source, and they had it in such a way when you plug it in, the power would come on. Whereas it's really you need to put it anyway. So we got it all back to factory specs, which is the way I like it. I hate when people do crazy ass electronics engineering, especially on the airplane, when they don't know what they're doing. They don't take the time to study the schematic and figure out how to wire it properly. They just do something, run an extra wire or whatever. I just hate that. Moving right along. My mechanic, Dan, he is a very sharp guy, and he noticed that the mags were kind of laying down onto the cylinders and impeding the airflow. So what he has done, you will notice on this one if you're astute, that he's rotated them up so there's more airflow, and he's also routed those wires, that was a Beach service clinic recommendation, on top of these brackets as opposed to underneath it. So you got a nice airflow going in there, and that was a good thing because my CHTs were up there. And look at that, gammies. We put those gammies. It's a $800 investment. I got it at Oshkosh, and now I'm running Lino Peak, and my CHTs, okay, in climb will not go over 370 degree F, even in a warm temperatures. Like I'm saying 80 degrees ambient out or whatever. Of course, it's getting colder now, so you might not have that problem. I guess my point is that that really helped, the gammies and all that rerouting, and last but not least, but I'll get to it in a second, the gammy baffles. Now I'll show you. He also has taken the time to silicone a lot of those little tiny air leaks. For instance, you see all this stuff. Might not look super pretty, but let me tell you, it did its job, because my CHTs have dropped, even on those worst offending cylinders, which is number 6, number 4, and number 2. The outer bank is always the worst one. Why I'm having these gills off is because I wanted to show you the stuff, but I also am going to do an oil change. So that's, if you're asking why. What did we do here on the front? Oh, let me tell you something. Make sure that was really something that really hit me in the pocketbook. All right, shimmy damper, right? The Beach guys didn't even notice this, the clinic, because it was hard to see. But that shimmy damper rod was bent. $500 plus labor. It's what it cost me to get it all fixed and serviced and installed a new one. Now, there's apparently a Lord one that you can buy. They'll set you less, about the same. Plus, you got a brand new shimmy damper. But anyway, I didn't know about it at that time. So that's the route we took. And how do you damage the shimmy damper? According to Bob Ripley, by towing the damn airplane by the nose wheel. You really need to use this. This is what it's for. Those are sacrificial, by the way. You know that, right? And you always should have a spare pair in your toolbox or in an airplane, because if you had snapped that, you could screw a new one in. But you should always only tow by this. Or, but if they tow it by the wheel, that they can overextend it, and then that's how you get your shimmy damper rod bent and your $500. And good luck trying to prove it to them that they did it. And I also marked these. You see these toe? I took a red. Your wife's best nail polish is probably recommended for this, just so you know. So you go to your wife's cabinet and find the best one, the most expensive one that she has, and because you only use the best things on your beach airplane, and you mark these for your turn limits. So these guys that they tow the airplane, they can see it. If they're morons, they won't see it, but then nothing can help you. Additional siliconing, see around the baffles? Yeah, so not the prettiest job, but does the functional. This is the gammy kit. See the hole? You put that in there so it shoots the air into the number 6. And on number 2, this scoop, and it puts it away from the cylinder, routes the air, and it really there's a little baffle there. See how it seals it all up. And I was a little skeptical because just that little mod, but that boy is really cool now at 350 or so, even on takeoff and climb and everything. Of course, setting the fuel flow to 27.5 gallons per hour on the IOT 520 is something that you must do. And maybe I should show you the magic tool that you need to give your mechanic to do this. Maybe not, because FAA might be watching. But anyway, what else? But anyway, the fuel flow is very important. If you have all these baffling and all that stuff done, but your fuel flow is too low, like 23, which is what mine was right off the engine rebuilt, you will get your high EGTs no matter what you do, and you can have DeShannon baffles, and you're still going to have high CHTs. So I'm not doing DeShannons on this. I am very happy with this kind of factory solution. These baffles are new. They're not maybe the silicone the greatest, but look, temp CHDs are low, so there's no need to be fixing something if it ain't broken. In this particular instance, in the instance of the relay, as I told you, I had a different opinion. Now, why did I take this gill off? Is because of these arms. See how they're stainless steel? Mine were bronze. Right there they are. Critical service bulletin from Continental came out, and they say that you must replace those because apparently they might slip on the shaft, and that's not a good thing. You will lose your controls, your throttle and mixture controls. So you must change those to these stainless steel ones, and they're pricey. But then I'll give the props to the engine builder, Signature, who in Ohio, who rebuilt this engine, and for whatever reason they missed it. But I brought it to their attention, and they did pay. So they sent us to my mechanic the new ones, or the correct ones, and they also pay for the labor to fix it. So I appreciate that, and that's kind of how I expect people to operate. Nobody's perfect, but if you do find something that might have missed, they were very prompt and very courteous to remedy the situation. Okay, what else did we do? These hoses, all new. Just make sure that there's no leaks, because with gamies, man, you really gotta make sure there's no induction leaks. And I'm still kind of chasing that a little bit. But I don't know where to look. We will have to pressurize the system and look again, I guess, because those things are tight and they're good. Accidentally or incidentally, that main hose that connects the fuel servo to the intake, there was a tiny little, like, not tear, but you know, like a wear maybe on the bottom that was impossible to see. But my mechanic is a sharp guy, and he noticed that, and we replaced that as well. I don't think the air might have been leaking through it badly, or if anything, because it was just, you know, the kind of wear you get on those hoses, and they're pretty durable. But didn't want to take a chance, because you know, if you've got a gamies and you've got an induction air leak, you can have gamies and you can chase this thing for forever, but you'll never get the good gammy spread. What I mean by good gammy spread below 0.4 gallons per hour. See again, hinges, how they are spring loaded now. That's what you need to be looking for. Next. You know what this is for, right? This little guy? This is a fuel drain valve. If your fuel selector valve and strainer and all that assembly up there is leaking, the fuel will pull up in this tray, and it's supposed to drip on the bottom and tell you, hey, you got a problem. Well, these guys, when they did this originally, they kind of, instead of having it flush like this, they put a nut on. They threaded it and put a nut on it, so this thing was sticking up a few millimeters. So my mechanic did what the beach guys or the clinic guys told, which is epoxy it in place, and been flying with it for a while, at least 10-15 hours, and that thing ain't going anywhere. So looks like fix is good. And you know, these things apparently get knocked out accidentally, you know, with your head or whatever, if you working under the airplane. So it's not unusual that you'll see these things bumped out of place. See my other drain valve fixed. What else we do on this one? You know, the springs and everything was redone earlier, so we didn't have to done. But all the gear rigging is redone completely from scratch, and it's right where it needs to be per the specs. My gear was kind of in the limits, but was kind of close to the tolerances, and Dan has completely rigged this, and that thing is the last time it was that perfect, it was when it rolled out of Wichita. Moving along, there's not that much more here, I don't think, to show you, other than we got these flaps adjusted. So these flaps need to be pretty flush, sorry, with the aileron. So the other flap is a little better, but we brought these flaps up. You probably noticed on the other aileron, on the other video, that they were drooping a little bit. I picked up a knot or two probably on this mod. This is kind of where you go into this area of over maintaining the airplane. But what the heck? I'd rather spend money on my airplane than on beer. or something ridiculous. So here's what we did. There was a little plate in that rod here, and this thing is tight as the day it rolled out of Beechcraft. There's no play whatsoever in that aileron. Could have been probably deferred for another year or so, but oh well. It's only money. Money on airplane is money well spent in my book, because that's safety. And I got kids that I ferry in this airplane, and my wife and everything, so that's why I over maintain the airplane. Just my personal philosophy. Nothing done here, I don't think. Okay, one thing is we just spaced these elevators a little better and complied with the AD. The AD was actually complied with, but they need to be marked here. You know, these rods, because when they're color coded, you read about that AD, so that when the trim doesn't run backwards if you put them in, when you put them incorrectly. I mean, that's what it is for. I'm not going to get into this right now. Here, see, I'll show you. This flap probably still could go up a little bit, but anyway, it's good. It's up now. Yeah. Let's see what else we got inside the cabin. No, nothing. No changes inside. Everything was good. Obviously lubed everything. The airplane's never been outside, so there's no corrosion. There's other than just giving it good lubrication of this with LPSs. Nothing else had to be done. All right, well, I'm gonna wrap it up. 20 minutes is long enough for me to be rambling. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I do like your comments. Next video, by the way, I'm shooting this with an Osmo gimbal stabilized camera. It was pretty cool, so maybe I'll do one inside of the airplane. It works remarkably well. I mean, so I'm moving around, but this thing is pretty fluid. Oh, another thing was the caliper. We changed one of the wheel calipers, I forgot to mention, but you know, again, it's one of those things that, why did we have to change it is because it's a long story. It was leaking, but then the leak could have been fixed by O-rings, but they had something else wrong with it, so we just put a new one in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the oil today. Maybe I'll shoot a video of how to change the oil on Bonanza, and then you guys can critique it and tell me all the mistakes that I've done. But winter is coming. I'm in Indianapolis, and I'm going to change the oil so the airplane's got a nice fresh oil for the winter time, and I'm going to put some cam guard in it, so I don't have to worry about this thing corroding on me. Thank you for watching. Send me your comments, Snyder marks, and see you guys, or talk to you on the next video.